Hello, welcome to this channel which is devoted to a reading and better understanding of the book Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. Please note that the installments on this playlist are numbered and you might want to watch them in numerical order. I think they'll make a heck of a lot more sense to you that way. As you know, St. John of the Cross advises us that there are 5 perils that come from reflecting upon imaginary apprehensions of the memory. And those are our memories of our past supernatural experiences of the senses that we might have had. In this chapter, St. John tells us that the 5th and final evil that comes from reflecting on them is that they cause us to form a low and unseemly judgment of God. If we use worldly images, representations, and comparisons to imagine God, it's inevitable that we're going to imagine him to be less than he is. We risk esteeming these images of imaginary apprehensions of the memory, which are unlike God. You see, God can't be anything like these because they come from our senses, and God is incomprehensible and incomparable. No man has seen God at any time. So if we dwell on images or imaginary apprehensions of the memory, we're going to end up ignoring the real God, of whom we can only approach through faith and not images or spiritual visions of the senses. It's natural that the soul's esteem of these apprehensible things should lead it to make a certain inward comparison between such things and God, which would prevent it from judging and esteeming God as highly as it should. Maybe I shouldn't make this comparison because St. John doesn't use it, and perhaps I'm overstating it, but it's almost, though not quite, like worshiping another god or a false god. And this idea is somewhat similar to what we're going to be discussing in a few weeks when we discuss an aspect of Lumen Gentium in the Smoke of Satan playlist. And if you haven't checked out those videos, you might want to do so. So when we esteem these things, the soul takes from God all that it gives to the creature. And as you probably recall, St. John calls attachments creatures because they take on a life of their own. When we hold on to our imaginary apprehensions of the memory, they're nothing more than attachments. St. John compares this to when a person pays more attention to a king's servant than to the king himself. But let's try to modernize this just a bit. Many, if not most of us, have purchased home or automobile insurance. During the lifetime of this business relationship, the only person that we interact with from the insurance company might only be the insurance agent. And we tend to evaluate the entire insurance company based on our impression of that one insurance agent. However, there's much more to the insurance company than just that agent. Behind them, there's a virtual army of insurance adjusters, actuaries, underwriters, appraisers, and loss control professionals. However, our judgment of that very large insurance company is based just on our impressions, good or bad, of the insurance agent. And this impression is based on our most outward of senses. Here's another example. Do you know anyone who has ever left the church because they didn't like something a priest said to them? There's a good chance that you do. However, we know that a priest is just a man, and actually the odds are pretty good that what that one particular priest said to the person might not have been representative of the church. The church is so much greater than any single priest, but based on some chance comment, something of the most outward senses that the person is hearing, that person was willing to ignore something that was amazing and actually supernatural. They leave the one true faith founded by Jesus Christ, along with leaving access to the sacraments, and based on something of the senses. And it makes you want to ask them, what are they thinking?
Well, you won't do right to save your doggone soul.
So in effect, by paying attention to what that priest says more than what the church says, the person esteems what the priest says more than what the church says. It esteems what the priest says more than divine truth. This is the same thing with us if we let our understanding of God become clouded by images or imaginary apprehensions of the memory. St. John tells us that if we dwell on these images, we won't grow through the light of faith. And the light of faith is what illumines our understanding. And the only way that our memory may be united with God in hope is to lay aside what comes from our imagination. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back next week when we'll discuss the next chapter of Ascent of Mount Carmel. In the meantime, please pray for the church.
And shake, round and roll. Shake, round and roll. Shake.